intricate diagrams carved into the surface of the Earth.
There are over 800 straight lines. One has to wonder, what was it for?
Massive depictions of animals and strange beings, seen only from the sky.
There's an enormous amount of mystery about the Nazca Lines. Who could have done this and why?
And bizarre, elongated skulls found all over the world.
This is an unusual cranial kind of elongated head. And we don't know whether it's really natural or was it some kind of deformation that they did.
Are the mysterious geoglyphs of Nazca really just artistic creations by ancient man? Or are they evidence of otherworldly visitors in the remote past?
I am absolutely sure, long time ago, the extraterrestrials, they were seeking for raw material, for energy of all kind. They found Nazca.
Millions of people around the world believe we have been visited in the past by extraterrestrial beings. What if it were true? Did ancient aliens really help to shape our history? And if so, might the proof be found when we explore the mystery beyond Nazca? Southern Peru, 1927. While hiking in the foothills of the arid Nazca Desert, archaeologist Toribio Mejia Cespe discovers what appears to be a large network of ancient roads carved into the earth. Years later, as airplane travel to the region becomes more frequent, aerial flyovers reveal nearly 100 other designs in the nearby landscape. Known as geoglyphs, they depict animals, flowers, and even a mysterious human-like being. Scattered over a nearly 200 square mile area, these lines and figures have become collectively known as the Nazca Lines.
The Nazca Lines consist of these massive drawings or carvings, if you like, on the ground. Everything from geometric symbols, lines, to animals, even fish, birds. But the intriguing thing about them is, you know, number one, they're massive, and they can really only be seen properly from the sky.
There are over 800 straight lines. There are over 70 animal figures. There are over 150 geometrical shapes.
We have glyphs of different figurines on the ground. We have these intricate lines and what appear to be runways spread all around the desert. Some of these actually show mathematical diagrams built thousands of years ago, which really raises the question, why?
There's an enormous amount of unanswered and perhaps unanswerable questions that arise from the phenomena.
The largest of the figures is nearly 1,000 feet, or the size of 3 football fields, while the longest line extends almost 9 miles. According to mainstream archaeologists, these mysterious earth drawings were created by the Nazca, an ancient people that flourished in the region between the 1st and 8th century AD. The lines were formed by the careful removal of the reddish iron oxide pebbles that make up the desert surface. Once exposed, the underlying dirt, which contains high amounts of lime, hardened and was resistant to erosion.
The Nazca Plain is made up of layers of light-coloured kind of rock and dirt with dark-coloured rock and dirt just on top. It's very simple, and they just remove dark-coloured stuff to reveal these kind of white-looking lines over the landscape, like a canvas that isn't being disturbed. has maintained its integrity for hundreds or even thousands of years.
The reason why they have survived is because of the desert conditions. Truly, if you make a geoglyph at the Nazca desert environment today, it will be found hundreds of years from now. There is hardly any rain, hardly any wind. Anything you make here will last for eternity.
But why did the Nazca people feel it necessary to make these elaborate and massive drawings in the earth? What purpose were they intended to serve? And why were they designed in such a way that they could have only been seen and appreciated from the sky, at a time when aircraft didn't even exist?
The only place you can see them above is that somehow you're floating in midair.
It has been suggested that whoever inhabited the Nazca Plateau, that they had access to some type of balloon flight so that they could appreciate what they had created on the ground. If the Nazca population had access to balloon flight, the Spanish chroniclers would have most certainly recorded that in their reports. But there is not a single word that describes that the Nazcans had access to hot air balloons. They would have written that down, but they didn't, so it didn't exist.
By default, we're in the bailiwick of highly advanced terrestrial technology, and that is really the anomaly of the Nazca lines. They really are easy to make when you look at it, because it is only really removing the top layer of a surface, but the magnitude of the figures is what makes this such a complex undertaking.
Many of the lines at Nazca go for miles, perfectly straight through the desert. There are various trapezoids and spirals and other glyphs that are so large that the surveyors would need some direction from the sky. And this is where aliens or some kind of people with flight had to be involved with the creation of the Nazca lines.
I was in Peru for a month in 1987. I went with a pilot over the plains of Nazca. The first pattern that the pilot said, well, let's aim for that long 6-mile triangle. And there have been laser surveys done, and it is remarkably accurate, this triangle. And it looked like something had pressed the whole ground down at least 24 inches. How would you press down a 6-mile-long, perfect triangle into the desert of Nazca? What kind of technology can do that? Not the feat of ancient people.
How could the ancient people of Nazca have created such massive geoglyphs without the capability of flight or the use of advanced tools? Might these mysterious lines have actually been created with the help of otherworldly beings, as ancient astronaut theorists believe?
The fact that these designs can only be seen from above, from the sky, is an indication that they were used as navigational markers for the gods when they were actually here. So the question then becomes, were they drawn in this way as navigational markers for the gods to actually fly their vehicles in?
Let's assume for a moment that extraterrestrials sent down some type of an unmanned craft, like a rover that we have on Mars right now, that is collecting samples and is driving around a desert plateau. It of course leaves behind some type of tracks. And then the natives just witness this, would look at each other and say, wow, we were just visited by God. When in reality, no such thing happened.
Now, could it be the case that the gods directed the building of them to the people below? Could it be that there was some sort of teaching process involved? The fact that we're talking about geometric lines and things like this, was it a teaching process by somebody up there for the so-called lesser perceived people down below? We're still asking questions 1,500 years later, but, you know, to this day, they fascinate people and just provoke endless controversy.